We're going to talk now we're at page number 101 in your notes. So let me get my pen function going here. And let's go with this color for now. All right, so this is page number 101 in your notes book. We're going to talk about polyatomic ions. Again, polyatomic ions. Again, those are on table E of your reference tables. And it's a group of atoms that share a charge, right? It functions together as one whole group. So the charge belongs to the whole thing in the group. And we use the parentheses. I like to think polyatomic ion starts with P, parentheses starts with P. We do not change the endings to "ide," right? "Ide" is only going to go with nonmetals that are elements only when we change the name to "ide." So let's get started on our practice problems. So you'll need your reference tables, right? You'll need your periodic table. You're going to also need table E for these questions. So you should go through, and you should do these on your own, and then go through the explanations. And then please ask your teacher questions. So myself or Mrs. Mitiga, please ask us questions if you need help with the formulas and the naming. All right, so I'm given a formula and I need to come up with a name. So the thing that we always do first is we name the first thing or element. If it's something on table E, we use the name for table E. If it's a metal on the periodic table, it keeps its name. So I'm going to look up Na and make sure you also look up on table S, right? So it's still relatively early in the year. You might not be very familiar with all of the element names just yet. To make sure, so this is sodium. It doesn't start with an S because it comes from its Latin name. And then now I have, this is more, anytime you have more than 2 elements, right, or actually 3 plus elements, you definitely are always going to use table E. More than 2 elements, go right to table E. So then I need to figure out what matches on table E. This part right here, I'm going to look for the match on table E, and I'm going to find that on table E. And according to table E, that is phosphate. And so I copy down the whole thing exactly. So that is sodium phosphate. So then now I'm going to go to table E because I have 3 elements present here. I'm going to name the first element, keeping its name, hydrogen. And then I'm going to find this CO3 on table E, and that is carbonate. And I copy the name down. Easy peasy, right? This is sodium. Right, with a little bit of practice, you'll end up, and then now I'm going to find this part on table E, that is the hydroxide. So notice I'm not going to call it sodium, oxygen, hydrogen, because that's not a thing. Remember, the names, you have to get the names right? So K, looking up on table S, if you don't know what that one is, that is potassium. And now I'm going to find this MnO4, and that is permanganate. So I copy it down exactly like it appears on table E. Right, so that's potassium permanganate. Now I have, again, I have potassium. And then I'm going to look up this part on table E, and this is the cyanide. Cyanide. So now I'm going to name the metal from the periodic table. This is calcium. And now I'm going to find this part on table E. This is hydroxide. Right, so the first element gets its name, keeps its name. You copy down the name from table E. All right, so now we're going to do the formulas, and we're going to have to use table E. So remember, the first thing you do when you write a formula is we need to translate our words into symbols, and we're going to use table E, table S, periodic table. The next thing you need to do is you need to grab the charges, and again, table E or your periodic table. The next step is crisscross, and this is where you bring the charges down to balance the charge. You crisscross to make those subscripts. So then calcium symbol is Ca. So this is carbonate, and it doesn't end in "ide." Remember, only the elements on the periodic table, the nonmetals, change their name to "ide." If it ends in 8, it's not going to be an element on the periodic table, so I have to go to table E. I'm going to find the word carbonate, and it's going to be a CO3 on table E. And so now I have my symbols, CO3. So next thing I need to do is I need to go and I need to grab the charges. So I go over to the periodic table. Calcium is a +2 on the periodic table, and carbonate is a -2 from table E. So I'm going to do my charges +2 and -2. So then when you crisscross, it would be 2 carbonates to 2 calciums, but I have to have the simplest whole number ratio, which is just 1 to 1. And if they're the same charge, it just means you have 1 of each because they already cancel each other out. So calcium carbonate. So now I'm going to do magnesium and phosphate. So magnesium from the periodic table is Mg. And looking it up on table S, right, to make sure that I have the correct symbol, this is also a +2. And now phosphate, this tells me I'm looking on table E. So I find the word phosphate on table E, I copy the symbol, and I then the charge. So I have a +2 and a -3. So then I'm going to write my symbols, Mg, and that's a +2 charge. I'm going to put my polyatomic ion in parentheses in case, because I might need more than one. That's not a 9, that's a 4, I'm sorry. And that's a -3. So when I crisscross, I need 2 of the phosphates to get -6 on that side. And then I need to bring the 3 down here. And then now I have 3 magnesiums to 2 phosphates. So that's going to be an Mg3 and then a PO4 subscript 2. So now let's do sodium thiosulfate. So I'm just going to make my screen, oops, I did something weird there. All right, so sodium thiosulfate, so the symbol sodium. And now I need to find thiosulfate, and then that's going to be SCN from table E. Charges, sodium is a +1 from the periodic table. Thiocyanate is a -1 on table E. So then when I look at that, it's a +1 and a -1. They cancel each other out, right? So I bring a 1 and a 1. So then I just rewrite that, Na and SCN. If you only have one of the polyatomic, you do not need to write the parentheses. If you include the parentheses, you're not necessarily wrong. It's just more of a style thing for chemistry. You wouldn't be wrong if you included the parentheses, but if you don't include the parentheses where you need it, then you would definitely be wrong, right? If you don't have the parentheses on the subscript 2 on the outside of this phosphate, then all of a sudden you have 1 phosphorus and 42 oxygens, and you can't create matter. So we have just 2 phosphate groups. So now we'll do potassium dichromate, K for potassium. I'm going to look up dichromate on my table E, and that's going to be Cr2O7. And now I'm going to do my charges. So potassium is a +1. And the dichromate is a -2, right? So +1 and a -2. So when I crisscross, I need one of the chromates, right? Because I'm going to bring that 1 down over here. Then I'm going to bring the 2 over here to the potassium. So I'm going to have 2 potassiums and then the chromate. And then again, you can put that in parentheses if you would need that in parentheses. All right, so that wraps up naming and writing formulas with polyatomic ions. And we'll do some more practice with some new techniques. I mean, we're going to add to our formulas and writing on the next workbook page in our unit, which is going to be page 102. So that will be our next video. Remember to practice. It's the best way to get